Hey, thanks for being here. And I wanted to start off with censorship. It feels like we're going through some dark times now where Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, they're banning like cue boards. And it feels like all these different social media outfits, these companies who are talking about, freedom of speech, you should have the right to speak freely. You should be able to express yourself. Why are we seeing this censorship? Why are they doing this now? What is going on here?
It seems very inconsistent and hypocritical because, you have murders happening on many different social media outlets, live streamed even, and you don't hear people calling for those apps to get taken down. So I think that the policies are totally inconsistent, and that's not fair. The First Amendment and what is legal in the U.S. should be legal, but what we're starting to see is the policies of these intermediaries are starting to take effect, and they're sort of caving to social and political pressures to take down certain content. But the thing is that they're not being consistent, so it's really not a fair playing field.
So what you're saying, it's one-sided where they're not saying, okay, wait, this person mentioned this person mentioned that, let's take them both down. They're leaving the one up and taking down one side. I mean, many people are looking at the conservatives, many people are looking at Republicans, and they're saying, well, look, they're, banning those people that are talking about the truth, they're banning those people or trying to get information out. And the one board that you talked about that went down because of what just happened, that's in the news out in Pittsburgh, is Gab. This individual allegedly was on Gab and they decided, let's remove Gab from the entire field of social media. PayPal came out and said, let's take them down. The hosting company came out and took them down. I mean, why would they go after this one social media platform?
I think for pretty obvious reasons. I mean, we've had our own issues. I think that we've been able to navigate. I mean, Facebook's currently blocking our links in Messenger. There's a CAPTCHA that you have to fill out before it will post our links to the news feed. We've had issues with Google there. I think that these sort of corroborated campaigns these campaigns sort of teamed up with multiple companies start happening, and they see that each other are doing it, and then they hop on the bandwagon because they don't want the bad PR. I think that's a big part of it. And yeah, it's definitely scary. And I think that it feels very political, and it's not consistent. So I think that it's very open, very, very important to try to work with these companies and understand what is happening. And I don't know if they've really made huge efforts in that regard. And so, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it's not cool what's happening.
Do you think by banning these social media platforms or banning individuals, does this actually help the situation when you censor someone from speaking out or a platform from allowing people to speak out? Does censoring actually work? I mean, if we look, back in history, does censoring people work? I mean, does it quiet everyone down and nobody wants to speak?
No, almost never. The Streisand effect is in full blast right now with all of this, and it just amplifies whatever you're trying to censor. So I think as long as it's legal, the pathway, even proven by many studies, is that the pathway to truly healthy discourse is to engage it head on. And that is what can cause attention to actually die down. Now, it's not that simple. I mean, it doesn't mean that banning always has the reversed effect. I mean, you can drown things out. So it definitely, it has to get addressed. But I mean, even Reddit, for instance, their CEO recently was in an interview, and they asked him, hey, are racists allowed on Reddit? And this was Huffman, I think. And he said, well, yes. And then the media just pounced on him, and it became this sort of PR nightmare for a couple days. And then he responded with the phrase, "Racists are not welcome on Reddit." And so, look, obviously, no one likes racists. There's lots of disgusting speech, but Reddit knows as well as anyone, because they're sort of, old school internet trolling site. They know how to deal with this, and they know that when you ban, it infuriates them to a much higher degree. And so he still would not say that they're not allowed. Even after clarifying they're not welcome, he's not saying that they're not allowed. So again, here's the inconsistency. We know that type of speech is on all of the networks, and that's why digital intermediaries need to really not be liable for the content. So we've taken at Minds.com the policy that if it's legal in the U.S., it can be there. And we're going to take every report on a case-by-case basis. You can't incite violence, but within the law, I mean, we don't want to be the subjective arbiters of what is okay and not okay speech. That's for the law. And that's where I think, to be honest, you would think most companies would want to go there, because there's less liability, and it causes them to actually be able to be accessible to more people. And so it's really a strange social phenomenon what is happening right now.
You're talking about freedom of speech and allowing, and you mentioned Reddit with, racists and stuff like that. So freedom of speech, let's just stay on that for a second. What type of speech is allowed then on these social media platforms? On
which platform?
On any of them. I mean, some people argue that these are private companies. I mean, is Minds.com a private company?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, pretty much all of them are. I mean,
right.
we're much more transparent and secure than most. I mean, all of our source code is open source, so anyone can inspect it and see what our algorithms are doing. Make sure we're not, shadow banning or spying on people. You go to github.com/minds right now and check it out. You can set up your own app with our software if you want. Basically no other alternative that I know of. There's only a couple like Mastodon and Scuttlebutt and a handful of more obscure alternatives that are fully open source. We also publish our financials on an annual basis, because we did an equity crowdfunding round last year where like 1,500 members of the community purchased future equity. And so it's very cooperative and transparent in that sense, which is pretty much the opposite of Facebook, Twitter, Google, Microsoft, Apple, all of them. So, but I think over time, we're going to start to be able to look at this compendium of studies and data analytics to really understand the Streisand effect, understand violence online, and understand where it's actually coming from the most. And I think we would, I'm sure, see that most of it is happening on the establishment social networks right now, like Facebook and Snapchat and YouTube, and a much higher amount than coming from the alternatives. I mean, it's horrible what happened, and we do have a responsibility on all throughout the social media landscape to build tools for users to protect themselves and to report illegal content. But it's pretty incredible how the media chooses who they want to team up on week to week, and then that impacts the service providers, and they start to lose a lot of credibility with regards to their even their own terms.
And I'm going to go back to my question on your site, on your platform. Is there a body or, a group that looks at, this is okay, this isn't okay. Let's make a decision if this person should be on here or not be on there?
Well, we have admin, so we have reporting tools. The community helps us with the moderation to a significant degree. But I mean, no, we have admins and moderators, but everything is contextual. So it matters. Each report is unique, and you need to always have that attitude. You can't have AI and algorithms just sweeping the content and having robots do the job, because that's when you have all this collateral damage. You saw the recent Facebook purge of like hundreds of, seemingly credible, normal alternative media accounts just get wiped. And, that's likely, granted, there's humans programming the AI and the algorithms and telling them what to do. But when machines are in charge, you have a whole new level of dangerous precedent for censorship. So, we take the approach that if it's clearly legal in the U.S., then we're not going to get involved. Threats of violence are obviously not okay. And, but from an overhead perspective, that makes sense for a company, because if your terms are vague, where all these different types of things are against the terms that are legal, the amount of work that you have to do moderating is way higher. So, we focus on the truly bad stuff, which is just a tiny percentage of the content on the site anyway. Granted, all the attention gets blasted at these, tiny things. And it's not tiny when, people go out murdering. That's clearly not acceptable. But I think that, Gab, that the post of the killer was not clear. So, it's really just not their fault. It's horrible. I think that they're handling it pretty much as well as they can. I don't even think that, that person clearly had accounts on other social networks. He didn't have an account on Minds, but, you don't see them asking the other social networks like this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it looks like they picked out a very specific, social media. Gab was growing, but, if this person was on YouTube or the person was on Facebook, I don't know if they were or not, or, they were on any other social media platform, would they do the same exact thing? Would PayPal, hosting companies, other corporations go ahead and take them down? No, I don't think so, right?
There's no way. There's no way. Stripe which is a payment processor that I think banned Gab. Facebook uses them. Facebook uses plenty of these services, and you never hear these calls. And so that is really just, it's very telling, and it's sort of exposing just a deep hypocrisy in the industry.
Yeah, I agree. And so most of these platforms, they're centralized, where it's everything like Gab was taken down because it was on a hosting company, and that's it. It's right there. They can take it down. How is Minds established? Is it centralized? Is it decentralized?
I mean, so we're sort of hybrid. We do have central servers. We have started bringing in more distributed services like WebTorrent and Ethereum. We have a whole token system integrated with the network. And that's on computers all over the world. The Ethereum blockchain, you actually earn tokens for all of your activity and engagement, and then you can use those tokens to actually boost your posts for more views and impressions, to have your voice heard further, which is the opposite of what the other networks are doing. They're restricting your speech with algorithms and, lowering organic reach. We have 100% organic reach and give everybody tools to blast their voice out. That is what it's about. That's what social media is about. And, we're never going to change that. So now we're also working on a prototype, which is on our Git, called Nomad, which is fully decentralized. So it requires none of our servers. This isn't like fully up and running. If you're a developer, you can get it up and running. Mine's github.com/mind/nomad. And that uses Ethereum public-private key cryptography for addresses and for IDs, and then uses a protocol called DAT, D-A-T, which is sort of a distributed architecture torrent style between browsers, and is that's where things are moving. It's going to take a long time for, Web3 to really mature. We're doing as much as we can to move in that direction. And we're also, taking steps to be as portable and redundant as possible. But, I tend to think that it's not possible for all of these companies to consistently enforce their terms. So I would hope that, these recent bans that have been happening over the last couple months can start to get reversed, and, they can pursue even legal action, because there's other offenders which that these service providers are not going to ban. And so that's a really good argument for the bans not even being legitimate in the first place.
Well, first of all, most of the terms on these other social media platforms, they're very, very vague. And my channel on YouTube was brought down and then it was brought back up. It was down for 2 days. And the terms, they never really, point to one thing. They just say, oh, you violated the terms, but you never know exactly what you violated. And I don't think they want to go that far to tell you specifically what you've done, because I don't really think they have anything. And that's why I think a lot of the channels or accounts on Facebook or on Twitter, they're brought back up. But I wanted to go back to what you were saying about, because it just popped into my head, that your code is transparent, your algorithms and everything. So you're doing everything opposite of what Google and YouTube are doing, because people try to figure out their algorithms. They try to figure out what they're doing, but they're hidden. We don't know how they work. We really don't. So you're saying you're taking the approach of doing everything the opposite, letting everyone know about it.
Yeah, that is essential. Free and open source software is the future. There's no option otherwise. I don't really understand, quite frankly, why places like Gab and BitChute are not open source. They need to be. I don't feel that you can be a true competitor if you're not open source. It's simply just, not walking the walk in regards to new levels of transparency. That is the root of the issue. If there can be public accountability on the algorithms and the code, then, there can be pressure for them to evolve much more. There can be community participation in helping the platforms to evolve. So, free and open source software is totally foundation. It's something that is not nearly acknowledged enough. The whole industry needs to it should, I'm not going to say a requirement because I don't think it should be legally enforced, but it should basically be a given that your application is going to be transparent.
Google was working on, I think it was called Dragonfly for China, where they were setting up a censorship type of search engine for China. And people were very worried that would then come back to the United States and they would use that here. Europe right now is pushing new regulations where they're saying you might not be able to use memes on your social media platform because it might violate their copyright laws. I mean, is this all these laws and what they're trying to do, is this all leading towards total censorship? Is that what they're really after here?
I don't know if it's so simple as like a singular source just going for total censorship. I think there's so many different interests fighting. I'm sure there's internal debates happening. The copyright proposition that you were mentioning, Article 13, I think. I mean, copyright is a total mess. They want everything to go through a content ID filter, and that is just extremely dangerous. And there is no open content ID protocol. There actually is somewhat of a need for that, because that actually falls into a really interesting legal category. I mean, obviously it's dangerous and shouldn't happen, but you do want to provide tools to prevent piracy in that sense, but you don't want some proprietary, secretive piece of code powering it that no one can keep balanced. So we don't have anything like that. It just comes through the regular report system for copyright violations, which, you think should be sufficient. If you can have machines help in the process, I think that is fair, but there should always be human oversight, and it shouldn't just be handed over to the machines. And this is the philosophy of free and open source software. It acknowledges that we're always building on the shoulders of giants. I mean, content, whether it's content, code, text, we are building upon ideas, and so with art, memes, I mean, where do you draw the line in terms of building upon works of others? You can't. It's not possible to enforce consistently. So therefore, the whole thing becomes just a total mess. And that is unintelligent legislation. It's not looking at the nuances of how memetics work or how technology works.
In the beginning, when we started to talk, we talked about censorship and Reddit and things like that. Q, who's like the voice of the Trump administration, there was a board on Reddit and it had a lot of followers. I mean, there was a lot of people on there. And all of a sudden, one day, Reddit decided to just, take them down. Boom, gone. And then all of a sudden we see Gab, gone. There's another board called Vote. People are saying that's going to be next. Since your platform is decentralized, I'm thinking to myself, it's going to be much harder for the establishment to try to bring your system down.
Yeah, I mean, we're not fully there yet. We're definitely still vulnerable in that regard. And, but we are moving there, and that's where we need to go. So to not be dependent on third parties. This is why we got rid of Stripe, and this is why we use Ethereum. Our whole business model is driven by tokens. So if you go to minds.com/token, you can actually, that's where you can get tokens. That's what drives our business. That's where you learn how to use them. And so, blockchains are decentralized, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and others. You can't take those down. So we shifted our whole business to be reliant on that as opposed to fiat. Now we're moving towards other components of the site. And there's, other than censorship, there's good reasons to do this. You even just from having too many central points of failure. I mean, say there's some natural disaster or something, and the servers get taken out. You don't want it to be just in one location. So that's why you see big businesses looking at decentralization and distributed systems for even just pure pragmatic reasons.
Is Minds free to join?
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned tokens. I mean, I think I understand what you're saying, but I want to make sure that we make this clear to everyone else. When you're talking about tokens, you're talking about a specific coin that people will use. I mean, do people get paid when they post and when they respond to posts or things like that?
Yeah. So you earn tokens for engagement, mostly on engagement. Like, you don't earn for posting because that can easily be gamed. But you do earn for gaining, upvotes and shares and comments and making referrals. And actually, just for being active, you do earn. That is the one, like, sort of action-based reward that we have for all the engagement you receive, for making referrals, for being active. And then you can use it to boost your post. One token will give you 1,000 extra impressions on your post now. And you can send them to other users. You can subscribe monthly to other users with tokens. You can get premium services. It's the whole company and network is fueled by them.
Let me ask you this. Do you believe that we should have an Internet Bill of Rights just like we have the Bill of Rights?
Yeah. I mean, there are multiple documents in place. We've actually endorsed a set of principles called the Manila Principles for Intermediary Liability, which is essentially a Bill of Rights. Actually, if you go to minds.com/p/Bill of Rights, you can read them. And it goes through, a number of reasons and statements about why intermediaries should not be liable for content, from hosting services to social networks to, DNS and whatever. It's just too much of a dangerous precedent. These were outlined by the Electronic Frontier Foundation and other leading digital rights organizations. So heavy lawyers were digging in on this issue. This isn't a left versus right issue. Censorship affects everybody. It's been affecting people on Facebook. I mean, even Telesur, the Venezuelan state media company, got banned from Facebook recently. It affects both sides, and even if it's a little bit more heavily slanted towards the libertarian side of things right now, that's only illusory.